Revelation chapter 12. And this is what I believe. There may be a way this plays out during the 7-year tribulation, but I believe this is kind of a parenthesis. It gives us some information about the devil and Israel. Chapter 12, Revelation, verse 1. And there appeared great wonder in heaven. You remember I told you that Hebrew word wonder means sign. And we're looking at the signs in the heaven. And a woman clothed with the sun and moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. So you don't have to be to seminary to figure out who this is. This is Israel that is going to give way to the Messiah. In verse 2, and she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. So we have the birth story there, and Herod was going to devour him, but couldn't. Verse 5, and she brought forth a man-child. This particular man-child, we know who it is, because he is who was to rule the nations, all the nations, with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. So he came, he was born, but now, the end of the beginning of Acts chapter 2, he went up to heaven. And verse 6, and the woman fled into the wilderness. So because of Israel's sin of crucifying her Savior and defying God, just as God predicted, she was hidden among the nations. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is salvation come, and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. And this verse is what makes me think this has it will play out during the tribulation as well. The 144,000, some of them are going to be martyred. Therefore, in verse 12, rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. That's a phrase used over and over, earth dwellers, people who dwell upon the earth. For the devil is come down to you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth, and this is what we're going to talk about tonight. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. You might just underline the 2 times flood mentions there, and it'll jog your memory as we talk about this tonight. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of his seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So, those of you who were not here last week, those of you watching on YouTube, I'll catch you up real quick. We're looking at the messages in the stars. And we looked at Genesis 1:14, where God made it clear that he put those stars up there not only to divide the seasons and the days and the years, but to be signs. And so they point to something. And here is the ancient Israeli Mazzaroth. It has been perverted into the zodiac, still exists today, but it was originally used by God, it is believed, to be a systematic theology. It tells the story of redemption beginning with Virgo and going all the way around. It tells the story of redemption, and it ends up with the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Leo the lion. The zodiac folks begin with Aquarius, and they just, each individual thing, constellation, means what it means to them. But if you look at it as God gave the Mazzaroth as a story, then it tells a complete story. And so these different constellations, the first one being Virgo, the Virgin, so each constellation has accompanying constellations. You have a main constellation and accompanying, they're called deacons. And the accompanying deacon with Virgo, one of them, there's three, is the mother and the child. And there's Mary, Israel, laying down, and there's the branch in her right hand and the ear of corn in her left hand. Those are all messianic, powerful messianic things. Jesus used them in the Gospels. I'm covering these very quickly because we dealt with them last week. And if you're watching now and didn't see it, you can go back and watch our YouTube video from last couple of weeks. And so the accompanying deacon has the mother playing with the child on her lap. And I just find it interesting that the child is slightly higher than the mother. So we will pick it up here. So as we read in Revelation chapter 12, in particular verses 13 to 16, we have that prediction that's there, and it seems to play out as a pattern. Now, if you want to go a step deeper in prophecy, understand the pattern of it. I'll explain what I mean by that. But the Greek mentality, the standard understanding of prophecy, is a man or a woman speaks a prophecy, and time goes along, and that prophecy is fulfilled. Now, that's true, but our God is far more elegant than that. Amen. He goes much deeper in that, and he does that pattern over and over again. And I believe that this is going to have its final fulfillment in the 7-year tribulation that we just read about. So the prophecy is a pattern. This is a layer deeper than most Christians will ever go. You can see the pattern of prophecy, for example, in these things I have listed here. The 7 feasts of Israel. I'll just pick one. Passover. Passover, year after year after year, they were playing out the prophecy that one day when Jesus, the Messiah, came along, he fulfilled that prophecy. So you see, prophecy is a pattern. It plays out over and over until it's fulfilled. And then we've got Noah and the flood, and we'll talk about what Jesus said about that. Noah and the flood, they were actual things in history, but they are also prophecies that will replay. And we're seeing this happen right around us today. And the Tower of Babel is a perfect picture of what the Antichrist is in the process of building as his system now. And you can go back and study about the Tower of Babel, and you can see a pattern that is playing out again. Antiochus Epiphanes, the celebration of Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights. That played out back then historically. That's going to come back again one of these days. Israel is going to replay that prophecy as well. So these next two passages have become familiar passages to us who have been studying prophecy the last 4 years. They are very powerful, very descriptive. In Luke 17:26, Jesus said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man." That is when he returns. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day of Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Now, Jesus' point there is, go back and look at Noah, and those folks there had 120 years of Noah preaching righteousness to them, telling them that destruction was going to come if they didn't repent. But they didn't repent. They continued to eat and drink and marry and give in marriage as if it was just ordinary stuff, as if all of this wickedness going on was the normal thing. And what's the big deal? Until the day came that it began to rain. And then they were all destroyed. And then the next pattern, likewise also as it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained down fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. Well, there's a lot there. I'll unpack maybe some of this Sunday as we continue looking at Lot. Looking at the research, it's really fascinating what they have found, and there's been a lot of controversy. This archaeologist says that these 5 cities of the plain were here, and others say it was here. Most today, archaeologists say, it's all a myth anyway. There never really was any 5 cities of the plain. It was just a myth that Israel told to make a statement. Yeah, that's the predominant. Archaeologists don't tend to be people trying to prove the Bible's true. They tend to be people trying to show it's all just myths and not true. There are many that do try to prove that it's true. And the fact is, as it is said, every shovel of dirt the archaeologist turns over proves the Bible to be true, over and over. So, the place that I believe the best evidence of the cities of the plain, over on the east side of the Dead Sea. Now, the Dead Sea has risen and fallen over the years in the amount. And over on the east side, they have found, this is really fascinating, they have found 5 cities. That is, they have found the remains of those cities. 4 of them were destroyed. 1 of them was not. Just like it says in the book of Genesis, it says Lot ran to Zoar and it was not destroyed. The other 4 cities were. No surprise there. But they were destroyed in an interesting way. So you have just below the surface that's been weathered at these sites, you have a really dark burned area. And when they unearthed it, they discovered that these cities were burned from the top down. Now, that's not like a normal fire. Normally, the fireplace would get out of hand and it would start and then it would sweep, across the town. But all of these houses were burned from the top down. Now, what does that tell you? That there was fire and brimstone that rained down from heaven. I say that to you because I know you all believe that, but if you read the archaeologists, they don't know what to do with that. So the Bible doesn't have anything in it that is not true. Amen. And the powerful truth of it is these people living in Sodom were all destroyed. And that's another thing. They were covered with this layer of sulfur that burned from the top down. And when you look at the sheer size of where these 5 cities were, I didn't calculate it too much, but from my understanding of nuclear bombs, it would take a seriously large hydrogen bomb to do that much devastation. And even a hydrogen bomb wouldn't do it like that was done. It wouldn't leave a layer burned with sulfur, and all that. Yeah, it'd be a terrible mess. And so it wasn't a hydrogen bomb, it wasn't an atomic bomb. It was fire rained down from heaven. And my point is, it was over such a large geographic area and thick enough that it's almost like Pompeii. It covered them with a pretty thick bunch of ash. If you've been to Israel, that whole area there was burned. Oh, yeah. And it's just devastating. And if you go to the Dead Sea, just east of that is where these tells are, where these places are. It's very fascinating. It is. So, patterns. Jesus gave these 2 primary patterns to watch for before he comes back. So, are we seeing anything like what happened in Noah's day? Well, let's see what happened in Noah's day. I mean, Jesus' main point here is that in the midst of the wickedness that was going on, they were just going about life. That's his main point. But the wickedness that was going on in Noah's day was sexual perversion. You have the fallen angels cohabiting with women, resulting in freaks. Or genetic manipulation. Have we got that going on today? Yeah. Genetic perversion and manipulation. Violence filled the earth, it says. Got that going on? Absolutely. I can't imagine. Just this last week there was a judge shot by the sheriff. Yeah. Did you see that? In Tennessee, I think it was. There had got to have been a better way to work that out. A bribe, or I don't know, anything would have been better than that. Yeah, there may be a whole lot more to the story when you get to chasing it down and finding out. But anyway, violence. The Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl, and everybody gathers, a sea of red, and everybody's celebrating. Of course, a lot of them getting drunk, and there's going to bad things come from that. And we've got these people who begin to shoot. Then they don't care who they hit. That's the defense of the one. I didn't know where my bullets were going to go. Doesn't sound like much of a defense. Well, it doesn't work because you're responsible for what comes out the end of that barrel. And so Jesus' point is that these things are going to be going on, wicked, terrible, sinful, off the charts sinful and wicked. And yet this is just normal. And the days of Lot, you know what that was. Sexual immorality of a perverted type. Got that going on? Huh. Wow. I couldn't believe it. Just every week we do something and wickedness finds a way to manifest its wickedness. And I think, okay, that's the bottom. That's as bad as we can get. And now we've got mothers who are dressing their boys up to be drag queen women. Little 12-year-old boys transitioning to women, drag queens. It's going to get to where you can't even keep track of it anymore. So that's the bottom, right? That's as bad as it can get. Are we there yet? No. I don't know. So far I've been wrong. So Jonathan Cahn's book, The Dragon's Prophecy, I recommend it to you. And he picks up on these things that we've been talking about and some other things, and he ties them in with October the 7th. You know what happened on October the 7th? This is when Hamas came in across Gaza into Israel and did the unspeakable things that they did. And Jonathan Cahn does a really good job of just taking what's laying right there in front of us and kind of tying it together and say, did you ever notice this? That's his gift. So, in the book, chapter 46 and 47, I want to zero in on that. Chapter 46 is the desecrator. Chapter 47 is the Black Sabbath. So we'll talk about chapter 46 first. Satan, we've all known as the imitator, but I had never really put it quite together the way Khan did, in that he's a desecrator. So, and this makes perfect sense when you think about it. He's the one that came up with and will come up with the unholy trinity in the book of Revelation. You've got the beast and the false prophet and Satan. Well, so why three? Maybe just because there's three. Maybe because he's poking a stick in God's eye. He's not only an imitator, but he's a desecrator, polluting what is holy. That's right. So Genesis chapter 2, verse 3. I'm sorry, verse 1 through 3. This is creation. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. Okay, the hosts are the stars, right? And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. Watch this. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. Now, the word sanctify, sanctification, simply means to set something apart. It's no longer a part of the normal, mundane, everyday. It's now set aside as holy. So he blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. So just the simple point, when God finished with creation, he set aside the seventh day as a holy day. The Sabbath, or Shabbat, was a day set aside for rest and a commemoration of what God did in creation. That's what it was for. That every Jew in every home are to get together and they're to celebrate the creation. The Sabbath was not just to be observed, though. It was to be received as a gift. God sanctified the Sabbath and gave it to the Jews. And he gave it to the whole world in one sense, but he gave it to the Jews. It's received by the Jews every Sabbath. That day is received as a gift. That's a thing with them. And it's welcomed into their home. Now, there's a reason why I bring this up, the reason why Jonathan Cahn brought this up in his book. The Sabbath is welcomed into their home as you would welcome a guest. In chapter 47, Cahn deals with the enemy takes that which was holy. When did October the 7th happen? On a Sabbath. They didn't pick a Friday. That's their holy day. They didn't pick any. They intentionally picked the Sabbath. They have consistently, they always do these things on the Sabbath because they know Israel is at rest.
That's right.
So they take advantage of it. So the enemy mangles it into an unholy day of carnage on the unsuspecting. When the Sabbath was supposed to be welcomed as an invited guest, Hamas turned it upside down, and it became a home invasion. So I want to take a little diversion for just a moment. We've looked at this over the years. Psalm 83 is an interesting prayer, an interesting invocation to God to do something about all the enemies that are surrounding Israel. In particular, these enemies right here. This is what is called the inner circle of enemies. Now, there's a larger circle that will be Ezekiel 38. This will be Russia, Turkey. The farther distant enemies will come on them, Ezekiel 38. But this is the inner circle, and I had never quite looked at it the way I did today. So Psalm 83. I'm not sure. Yeah, Psalm 83. It's a short little psalm. Listen to it. Keep thou not silence, O God. Hold not thy peace and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. That's interesting that the psalmist here couches it in terms of these are God's enemies, not just Israel's enemies. These are God's enemies. For lo, the enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, watch this, watch this, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation. Ding, ding. Let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, from the river to the sea. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. So who's behind Hamas? Iran. Who's behind Hezbollah? Iran. All of the enemies of God and of Israel, this closer in circle, they are in a confederation together. Verse 6. The tabernacles of Edom. I had never thought about that before. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, the Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher also is joined with them. They have holpen the children of Lot. Stop and think about that for a moment. And here he cries, do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabin at the brook of Kison, which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Make their nobles like Oreb and like Zeb. Yea, all their princes as Zebah and Zalmuman, whom said, let us take of ourselves the houses of God in possession. Now, I don't know, but that makes me think, when Israel became a nation, a lot of those people fled because they would not be a part of Israel. They say they were chased out, but they left on purpose because they wouldn't be a part of Israel. Let us take to ourselves the houses of God. Let's take it back. O my God, make them like a wheel, as the stubble before the wind, as the fire burneth a wood, and as the flame setteth the mountains on fire, so persecute them with thy tempest, and make them afraid with thy storm. Fill their faces with shame. Now watch this. Now a turn takes place. Now we find the motivation of a godly people. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Lord. Let them be confounded and troubled forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Jehovah, art the most high over all the earth. And so much detail. I told you before, Daniel gives so much detail that theologians that are so smart, they look at that and say, oh, well, that was written by people who wrote it after it happened. Yeah. This is what was a little bit different for me. I saw this perspective. And any of you have been following prophecy very long, in Psalm 83, Bill Solis has written a book on it, and he has a take on it. He believes it's a prophecy, and this war is out in front of us pretty quickly to happen. But there's a whole other possibility that this has been ongoing since Israel was a nation in 1948. Yeah. This continues to be a seething cauldron of a warlike mentality. They've been at war with these people since they became a nation. I believe that fits perfectly. And there will be, I believe, a final fulfillment of the pattern that will finally take them out. Good. We've got to talk for just a moment because I'm still processing what Israel did electronically. Yeah, so there was a whole bunch of different layers to making that happen.
Absolutely.
A whole bunch of layers to the company that they had access to get the device, to put a battery in it that was an explosive. But I think we also see there where warfare is going to go in our times. And you know, every military in the world took serious note.
Absolutely did.
China, our CIA, they may have already known about it. I don't know. I doubt Israel told us because they wouldn't want Hezbollah to know.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to find them.
Can't trust the CIA. So the different multiple layers of this is really fascinating what they were able to do. And they killed hundreds and maimed a couple of thousand plus. And the figure may be up towards 4,000. This is massive. And they've been very precise. They have been taking out the leaders they wanted to. There's a couple of the top boys they're not taking out
Yet.
because I don't think they ever will, because if they take them out, they make them a martyr and a rallying point for all Islam. So they're smart enough not to take them out. And the time may come when they do that. There may be a strategic time. And everybody's wondering, is it about to go nuclear? But in Israel is only 1/7 the size of Missouri. And that's like Jackson County. The answer to me is no. Nobody's stupid enough to use a nuclear weapon in that area that they want to inhabit. If you set off a nuclear bomb, you can't inhabit that area. But I think we're going to see, we'll go through it, and some of these things may become even clearer. Well, we have these things visualizing right before us in the news. And so the verses that we read, the tabernacles of Edom, I'd never thought about that. What's a tabernacle? It's a tent. A tent is what they talk about, the refugee camps. Is this what the psalmist is talking about? I don't know. And then the players, Philistines, these two are the main players right now. There are other forces that are helping and doing things, but these are the two main players. And they're right there in the text. Here's where I think it is evidence that they will not go nuclear. What did Hamas call October the 7th? They had a name for it. Well, before I tell you that, I want you to read Daniel 9:26 and see what Daniel said. This is the 70 weeks, right? And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, the cross. And the people of the prince that shall come destroy the city and the sanctuary, Satan. And the end thereof shall be with a flood. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. And we read in Revelation 12:15, the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th, and they gave a name to it. Al-Aqsa flood. Al-Aqsa is the mosque on the Temple Mount. Hamas and Hezbollah, they have web pages, and on those web pages they show every one of the warriors, their warriors who are killed. They display them, and they put right up there, martyred on the road to Jerusalem. They want the Temple Mount.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to blow the Temple Mount up. I think it would be a hoot. I think it would be hilarious if God directed one of the missiles Hezbollah shoots towards Tel Aviv and just brings it right down on top of
Wouldn't it,
Al-Aqsa.
yeah,
Al-
Al-Aqsa.
Okay, I'm not telling God how to run the universe. He knows how to do these things better than I do.
It's a call from mosque, I'll say that for you.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock, so we're going to have to stop.